Blue skies call. They seduce us, pulling us irresistibly upwards, reminding us to fly our own line, on our wings, and in life. We are the seekers, adventurers, being one with the air, feeling everything and nothing at once. That's the magic we chase. Follow the call. Find your pure, wild flight with NZ Aerosports.
Coming straight from the cockpit, it's another episode of Lunatic Fringe with the fucking pilot.
Ready, set, go! Back in the can for another edition of Lunatic Fringe Into the Void with a familiar face, one of the ultimate badasses, and somebody we haven't met yet. So please tell me, gentlemen, who the fuck are you and what do you do?
Hey, Dean. Thanks for having us on. My name is Jarrett Martin.
Gene, good to have you here, man. Good to be on your show. My name's Brett Martin. Just another skydiver.
You know, it's kind of funny, Brett, although we went and did a lot of back and forth online and politically would fight on the same side on Facebook when we were both in the mood, I think this is the first time we're actually both talking. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
It's a neat opportunity. And Jarrett, so I see you guys have the Summit Parachute Systems behind you, and I'm guessing that's who I've been plugging for a while on the podcast now.
That's right. Yep. You're in the shop, and we're just working on parachute rigging, and that's just
nice.
What it's been.
Well, we'll get around to how Summit Parachute Systems got started and all that. But like I always do on the podcast, I want to get started, obviously, with who you guys are. Now, you're father and son, and you're both active skydivers and riggers and stuff. So let's start with Dad first, because I'm guessing his beginning in the sport is what led to yours. So, Brett, tell me, how did you get started in, first off, anything extreme, but specifically skydiving?
Well, what's funny, Dean, is I don't consider myself an extreme sports athlete by any means. I started into skydiving, and my dad started when I was 4 years old, so I've been around it all my life.
Oh, wow.
I started in 76. I've been a professional skydiver pretty much my whole life since 88. Parachute rigger, senior rigger, AFF instructor, Canopy instructor, got about 18,000 jumps.
Wow.
4 base jumps for what that's worth, kind of thing. It's just been kind of part of my life since I was a little kid. My sister jumps, or used to jump. My brother still jumps. Nieces, nephews, aunts, uncles. I got married skydiving, so it's been part of my life since I started.
Really? So it's been a lifelong thing, not just for you, but all the way through from your father's generation. Now, how did he start in skydiving?
Actually, 3rd generation skydiving.
Really? There's not too many families out there with that kind of pedigree. How did your dad get started in jumping?
I really don't know. I was a little kid at the time, but he started with in Aurora, Oregon, back in 1964.
Okay.
With Ralph Hatley and Ted Mayfield and those guys in the Pacific Northwest. An interesting thing about my dad is back when the D.B. Cooper thing happened, back in 70 or 71, whenever it was.
Sure.
Back in the day, there wasn't a whole lot of skydivers back in the 70s, and pretty much every skydiver in the Pacific Northwest got interviewed by the FBI about the DB, including my dad.
Right.
So I mean, it was a big deal back then. And of course, I was like 9 or 10 at the time. So.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the D.B. Cooper thing, for those that don't know, he was the guy that stole, I don't know how much, it wasn't actually a lot of money by today's standards, but back then it was, and bailed. It was how much?
$200,000.
So, yeah, I mean, a good chunk of change, but not nearly what it would be today. And he bailed out of the back of a jet, an airliner in Oregon, didn't he?
Yes. Southwest Washington's where he got out.
Jesus. And, of course, the big thing with that is they never found him, or have they now solved that mystery?
I think it would be, if they had solved the mystery, Dean, we'd all know about it by now. It'd be headline deal. But, I still say it's Ted Mayfield.
Really? Well, see,
and
that's
dead, so we can't answer.
So it's great. Yeah. Well, then it's Ted Mayfield. I'll agree with you on that. So now, when Jarrett got started in jumping, obviously this must have seemed like a pretty natural progression because this is something that the whole family had done.
Yeah. I mean, Jarrett, he was the only thing that kept him from skydiving later, as opposed to sooner, was he couldn't fit into the harness. Basically, as soon as we could get him into the harness, he was in the tandem harness. He was jumping. He was packing parachutes, well before that. And, he's kind of involved in the sport. He grew up on the drop zone, so he was involved in the sport since he was born, basically.
Wow. So he started out life as a packing weight and then worked his way up from there.
Yeah, he was a packing weight, then he was a packer. And he was
So, Jarrett, when you got started in jumping, where did you do your first jump?
So I did my first jump, Skydive Toledo. I mean, my dad used to own that drop zone. I mean, it was started by my grandfather. And so naturally that was a good place to start. And I did a tandem with my dad. And my uncle was also on the skydive. And so it's just like, another day with the family.
So I got to ask, so when I grew up, my dad was a golfer and I naturally pushed back against wanting to do something that he did, like a lot of kids will do. So I absolutely did not want to be a golfer. Was there ever any point where you were pushing back about wanting to go into skydiving, or was it just I'm absolutely going to be a jumper?
Well, let's see. I mean, I'm trying to think, probably in the 5, 6 years, 7 years old, Power Rangers came out, skysurfing was a thing. And my dad's a sky surfer, and I'm like, how could you not just fall in love with that idea? And I mean, it's pretty funny. Obviously sky surfing kind of faded out, but no, I never pushed back because I was like, how can you push back against sky surfing? That's so radical.
Yeah, I mean, sky surfing and golf don't have a lot in common, do they?
I mean, it's pretty funny. I did the one sky surfer, 2 sky surfing jumps, but I mean, it's kind of like one of those things where it's funny how that whole transition works as far as that goes. But skydiving was pretty much always going to be on the table. I think for a little bit, I kind of wanted to be a pilot for, probably in the early teens before I started actually skydiving solo. But then I think when I started skydiving, I mean, the dream of just being a professional skydiver was always, going to be there.
Sure. Now, Brett, he just mentioned you were a sky surfer.
I wouldn't call it that, Dean. I got, 50 or 60 sky surfing jumps with a short board. I think I got maybe one jump with a longer board, but I wouldn't consider myself a sky surfer. But, I mean, to a little kid back when he's 9 years old and 8 years old, it's like just seeing dad walk out to the airplane with this contraption, and these weird clothes on and stuff like that was kind of cool, I guess.
Sure. Well, and I mean, that's 50 or 60 more jumps on a board than a lot of people have. And I mean, those fucking things are dangerous.
Well, it's funny because I remember the first sky surfing jump and I was terrified. And this is after several thousand jumps. But as soon as I was out of the airplane, that's not so bad.
Sure. Felt kind of natural.
Yeah, I mean, by no means do I consider myself a sky surfer or a good sky surfer kind of thing. But like any skydive, as soon as you're out of the airplane, you're kind of just in the moment, and it's not as scary as you thought it was going to be.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Well, and you're so programmed to take care of emergency situations and to be hyper aware of everything that it kind of, I would imagine, all just kind of kicks in.
Yeah.
So now, how did you start working in the sport? Obviously, you grew up around it, but what was the first gig for you in skydiving?
You talking to me now, Dean?
Yeah, for you, for working.
Yeah, well, it's kind of one of those things where, I was actually a professional musician when I really got into skydiving back in the mid 80s. And I just kind of started slowly getting out of playing music and more into playing skydiving or skydiving.
Right.
And the drop zone that I was jumping at that my dad started pretty much folded into nothing. And we were at a meeting, so to speak, at the drop zone, and I drove up from Portland. And the meeting was like, what are we going to do? How are we going to get this thing going again? And it just so happened that a buddy of mine, or soon-to-be buddy of mine, Mike Jackson, who I'd never met, had showed up to make his last payment on the airplane that my dad used to own when he started drop zone with. So while he was there, I said, "Hey, Mike, as long as you're here, you want to fly a couple loads?" And he's like, "Okay." And so I got out a piece of paper and started manifesting loads. And that just turned into me owning the drop zone. I paid $200 for the drop zone, $200. And when I got out of the drop, what I got for my $200 was 2 old military static line rigs and nothing else. No clubhouse, no airplane, no bathrooms, no nothing. We just took it from there.
Really? Talk about starting from humble beginnings. But
Had 107 jumps, no ratings.
And you owned a drop zone.
I owned a drop zone.
So, I mean, did you wake up one morning and go, "Oh, shit, how the hell am I going to do this?" Or was it just, all right, this is what I do now, and you went for it?
Well, at the time, I had a regular job in Portland, Oregon, and it wasn't like, all right, now I'm going to be a professional skydiver. It was like, okay, at the end of the day, that first day, I say, well, if you want, Mike, you want to show up next week, we'll fly a few more loads. He showed up. I showed up, and it just kind of took off from there. It was never really planned.
I mean, which is kind of cool, really, especially when you're talking about leading into what's obviously been a lifelong career in skydiving, that it just was kind of a, let's see how it comes and kind of go from there. Now, Jarrett, you were a little bit more planned, weren't you, when it came to how you got started in skydiving?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like, just my path is so like, I feel like, predetermined. You start packing and then like you start jumping and then you put a video camera on and then you're making money. I mean, you're making money when you're packing, and then it's like, if you're gonna stay in it, like I knew that I was, like, you just know that you're gonna go through the evolution of of just being the money making skydiving guy.
Well, and the first time that we had talked to you, it said that the progression was obviously very fast for somebody that was as young as you are, because of the family and the roots in skydiving. But I believe you also had said that you were taking on a ton super quickly because you were super absorbed in the sport. I mean, how old were you when you had your instructor's ratings?
Yes, I mean, when I had my instructor's rating, I was 18.
Yeah,
that's as young as you can get, and
crazy young.
It probably happens because it's when I started skydiving at 14. I'm pretty already familiar with definitely the terminology, quite a bit of the theory, and more or less like when it came time to like execute, it's like, all right, so I at least had the basic skills pretty early on, and then it just manifested itself and compounded and be an instructor early on too.
Now, at 18 years old, did you find you had a lot of pushback from students going, "Who the hell is this kid and where's my real instructor?"
Yeah, totally. I remember one person definitely was like, "I'm not jumping with you."
Really?
Yeah, and it was pretty funny, and I think like I remember the story goes like them telling me that they're not going to jump with me, and then the whole like thing was like, no, I'm your instructor, and then them being like, no, I'm not jumping with you, but then kind of walking to the airplane with me, and then being in the airplane being like, no, I'm still not jumping with you, and then them definitely like not letting me jump out with them, and so we landed in the airplane, and they got a new instructor, and he went with the new instructor, Andy Farrington. Then Andy, my friend Andy Farrington took him, and it's so funny. And I would be like, what the hell, man? And I remember like the next load being on the plane with him, next to him. Like you can imagine, tandem style caravan seating, like with benches and like being like next, adjacent to the instructor. Like, why didn't you? So now you're going, and
I mean, speaking as a 50-something-year-old grumpy old dude, it would probably be difficult for me to go and meet some 18-year-old kid, because you look young now, so I can only imagine how young you must have looked at 18 years old. So, yeah, and so I guess I can kind of see, but also with skydiving, it's obvious, right? When you can see the way somebody carries themselves and the obvious attention to detail that they have, and the clear direction that they've got. I would think, especially with you, I've always known you to be a really super strong personality in regard to, I've got this, I know what I'm doing. So I could see you easily being able to win over most personalities. So I'm actually kind of surprised that he didn't go with you.
Yeah, it's one of those funny stories where I was like, man.
So now, did you guys segue to Hawaii as a family?
No, I would say, I mean, as soon as I could, I wanted to be like a professional skydiver, like before I even finished high school. Like, I'm like, do I have to finish? I remember asking you, do I have to finish high school? Can I just like go to Hawaii now as like, you know, an 18-year-old, you know, but, you know, but I had to,
the answer is no.
The answer is no. I had to finish. Yeah, no, I had to finish school, but like, goddamn, like I think I graduated in June, and by, you know, July I was in Hawaii.
Wow.
As a tandem instructor, living the dream.
I mean, just out of high school, 18 years old, tandem instructing in Hawaii of all places. Now,
yeah, so.
Hawaii as a tandem instructor or a camera flyer out there, that's a challenging place to jump, is it not?
Yep. I mean, I did it for a little bit. My dad's done it for longer, so he can comment on that. But yeah, it's just, you know, high pace and winds, and you know, and then you're just kind of like, you know, navigating the Hawaii, you know, drama and politics, which is, you know, its own category.
Yeah. So Brett, how did you end up making your change out to Hawaii?
Well, Dean, I could spend 3 podcasts just talking about how I got to Hawaii, let alone the whole process. I'll keep it as quick and as simple as I can. First of all, I had no desire to ever go to Hawaii. It just, to me, it never entered in my consciousness. When Jarrett got hurt, I flew over there while he was recovering over there, and like, it wasn't 2 hours off the airplane, even with Jarrett injured, that I kind of fell in love with the place. And then we went back to Washington. He did some more recovery, and he went off to school, and then off to work for Jump Shack. And so I decided, well, I'll see what I can do over in Hawaii. So I flew over to Hawaii, spent 3 months in 2011, and then back in 2013. And yeah, I just fell in love with the place. I mean,
sure.
I consider it my home now. But, you know, it's a challenging place to learn how to skydive. You probably know who Andy Malchiati is.
I know the name, yeah.
Yeah, we were over there in 2011. We hadn't started jumping yet, and we're out in the landing area watching the land. It's a whole different ballgame right there. And Andy and I are like, oh, that guy's fired. Oh, he's fired for sure. Oh, that guy's fired. You know, and then you realize that it's just a different atmosphere out there. You do things different.
Yeah, for sure. Now, it had to have been difficult, especially since you're literally getting off the plane in a place like Hawaii, but you're going because Jarrett got himself hurt. That in itself, I mean, how do you handle that message? Because obviously you weren't in Hawaii when the injury happened. And Jarrett, we talked about the injury on the last podcast, but we'll recap a little bit. But Brett, that must have been so difficult for you.
It was it's even hard to talk about it now, but
I bet.
When I got the news, I remember it like it was yesterday. And I'll cut to the part of being in the airport in Seattle. And major kudos to Luke Akins and the Farringtons for making all that happen. But I'm in the airport not knowing if I'm going to show up to a dead kid or a live kid.
Sure.
I remember being at the airport talking to the doctor for the first time, and I'm like, you know, is he going to make it? You know, and the doc's like, well, we'll do the best we can.
Wow.
Yeah, and seriously, and literally minutes before I got on the airplane, I got a call from the doctor saying, yeah, we fixed the aorta and he's going to live. So, I mean, you know, I didn't even know that was going to happen, how that was going to play out until I got to the airport in Hawaii.
My goodness. Now, Jarrett, for those that haven't listened to the first podcast, give me a brief rundown of what happened with the accident.
The accident was, we're doing some ground launching in Hawaii. And back then it was, you know, now it's speed flying. Back then it was ground launching. We had, you know, skydiving parachutes and skydiving gear. And I was going to take it one step further by doing a cutaway after I launched off the mountain, and my rigging on the cutaway system was faulty, and so when I launched off the mountain, one of my risers disconnected prematurely, and a couple of seconds later I hit the ground with basically a half inflated 80 square foot parachute. So paralyzed from the chest down, and use a wheelchair.
I mean, it's funny. I've only known you post-accident, and I've never met someone who comes across less handicapped than you. I've never in any way been given the impression by you and the way you act or in what you do that you consider yourself anything other than fully capable doing ridiculously epic shit. Dude, you do stuff out of a wheelchair that I wouldn't do on my best day, which blows me away. So it's difficult for me to put myself in the shoes of before versus after. I can only imagine. I mean, you've done so much in skydiving since that accident, and you just have had zero quit. And I'd imagine Brett's had a whole lot to do with that. I mean, it doesn't seem like either you are much of the type to give up for anything.
Yeah, just yeah, that's it, man. Just got to keep on going. Yeah, it was hard at the beginning, but the skydiving community is pretty radical, dude. Just
sure.
Literally, will literally pick me up. Literally will pick me up and put me in the airplane.
Yeah, man.
If I need to. And,
yeah, man.
I'm super thankful to be just in a situation where I can just, life's been easy for me, man. I mean, the accident was, tough emotionally, but for the most part, it's just like, all I do is,
sure.
All I do is do, man. I mean, it's skydiving when, skydiving when I'm skydiving, or it's rigging when I'm rigging, and it's just I'm thankful for just
Sure. Well, and you even segued back into competition, correct?
Yes. So I love competing. I think that's I think a little competition is good.
Yeah. Well, you went back into
my thing.
Absolutely. Well, and you went back into competitions. You were the first paraplegic with the team, weren't you?
Yes. So, paraplegic is being a paraplegic and competing. Like, it kind of limits you to style and accuracy, to do it well, I think. And then it's like when I thought to do that, like all these like accolades of being like the first started getting tossed around, and I'm like, that's pretty funny that I could still like make the U.S. team, and as a
sure.
And that caveat, I was still a junior competitor.
Really?
Junior competitor is like 18 to 24,
right?
And they're like, hey, you're even though like I'm not super competitive as a paraplegic, but seeing as I was the only junior competing, they allowed me to do international competitions as the junior competitor for the U.S. parachute team.
I see.
And so it's just kind of by default because I was easily the youngest competitor by 20 years or something.
Sure. Sure. That's cool though. Now, Brett, what did you think when Jarrett said he wanted to start competing? Well, jumping again, and then of course competing again.
Well, I mean, it was it was never a question of whether he was going to start jumping again. I mean, pretty amazing. He did a tandem. What it was 2 months after you got back from Hawaii, 3 months. It was pretty early on. He did a tandem, and then he was back. He went through a kind of a little refresher AFF thing, and we modified equipment and tied legs together and came up with different this and different that. But it really wasn't a question of whether he was going to start jumping again or even competing again.
Sure.
And again, he never got pushed or pulled. He just kind of like went from step to step to step, and he was off and running.
Sure. What did you? I got to ask. What did you think? There's a photograph that's always impressed me, still impresses me to this day. In fact, I saw a different photograph from, I would imagine, the same trip, of him doing a base jump off of, and where, I'm not sure where you were. Was that Brento?
I mean, I've done base jumps in Brento. I think the one that you're talking about is Norway, though.
Was it Norway? So that was with Ellis and Micah and the crew.
Yeah, Ellis, the one, because we talked about that photo, and it's an amazing photo of Ellis going off of Norway.
Yes.
And, I mean, I just happened to we happened to see the camera, both of us, and we're both in free fall, and we're looking at the camera directly, and it's kind of a gooey photo.
Sure.
So.
Well, there's that picture, and then I just saw one that I had not seen before that somebody had swapped over to black and white, and you were going off with two other jumpers, and you were the only one looking at the camera, and both of them had very intense, just jumped off a cliff face, and you're looking at the camera with the most chill, relaxed expression on your face, and it just made me fucking smile from ear to ear because you look so cool as you're going off of this cliff. And I've never done a base jump. I would be shitting my pants, and you are just, yep, here we go.
I remember that base jump too. That base jump was Brito, you're right. And I remember shitting my pants, but I better at least have the appearance of that I got it together.
Oh, dude, man, you, as far as the looking cool and composed, you had it fucking nailed. It was perfect.
I remember because the two guys who on that one was Noah Vanson and Micah Couch.
Yeah.
And we were all shitting our pants, dude. We were like, what the fuck are we doing?
Well, and talk about a crew, Micah and Noah, for fuck's sake. I mean, you don't get more epic, especially in the base jumping world, than those guys. So that was pretty spectacular.
Yeah, those guys, amazing.
Brett,
that's a dream jump right there. I just gotta follow with.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and you even got to do the dream jump off the Princess Tower when you were living in Dubai, right?
I got to do the dream with those same people. That was. Actually, scratch that. That was the dream jump.
Was it really?
That was literally the dream jump, man. In fact, that's what they called that, the dream jump, too.
Yeah, that's super cool. Brett, what did you think of his base jumping career? Were you a fan of that, or was that something you were like?
What's interesting about that is he was talking about it from an early age, and he pretty much hounded me. And I said, okay, I never think that he would follow through with my requirements, but my requirements, first of all, do some research,
right,
and find a specific place to do it that's that I can trust and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And I figured, I can shut it down right there. There's no way he's going to make that effort.
Right.
But he did, and he found our good buddy Miles Dasher in Idaho, and I said, okay, fine. All right, fine. I'll let you do it, but you got to go with this guy named Tony Chenier, who's a lifelong friend of ours. I dated his mom for years. And I said, okay, you got to go with Tony. And I figured Tony wouldn't go, but Tony agreed to go. So Jarrett and Tony went over to Idaho, and it was he kind of called me on the whole thing.
Right.
I put these conditions down. He met the conditions, so I let him go over there and do that. And then he continued on, and I could go on. A whole podcast just on my reaction to base jumping.
Right.
I literally had to ground him one day. Most kids get grounded for staying out late. I literally had to ground him for jumping off of a cell phone that I found out through a friend of his. I mean, so grounding your kid took on a literal meaning with this one.
Dude, that is fantastic. I mean, you're right. That does take on a very different meaning when you're talking about grounding your kid, when you're literally having to strap the kid to the ground. So I see you guys sitting in front of a Summit Parachute System sign, and anybody that's been listening to the podcast over the last few years, and especially over this last year, has heard me talk about Summit Parachute Systems. And I say, Jarrett Martin and the family cracking out badass pilot rigs and rigging courses. Well, what in the world got you to decide you wanted to start building pilot rigs? And well, first I'll start a rigging loft, and then it's specifically good to go into pilot rigs.
Well, I don't know. I think it was like, again, like it was just almost like destined, man. I can tell you, like, I've been wearing pilot rigs since I was a kid, since I was sitting in the airplane, you know, playing with the yoke, you know, and wearing pilot rigs. And then it's like full circle back to like, you know, leaving Dubai in 2017. I, you know, was a rigger in Dubai and got some experience there, but got a lot of experience after leaving and going really into being a production manager for Firebird, and then from there really learning the inside, you know, know-hows of, you know, parachute production, and then kind of having the opportunity to, you know, take over a TSO, and like it was just so perfect to be like, you know what, I think that it coming from base jumping, you know, I was like, and you know, my love for I know pilot rigs, man, like it's a perfect little niche thing, and I just I love it. It's so how no one thought about those guys. Like, I'm going for it.
Speaking of base stuff, have you thought about branching out into base equipment?
It's on the table.
Nice.
You know, I can't say for certain like when or, you know, but yeah, I mean, you just take the ripcord out and throw out a pilot chute on, man. I think you got a base rig. Nice.
Well, and that's the great thing about skydiving, right? And especially with your family having as many years in the sport, is it's not like you lack for connections and knowing people. So once you start getting to that point and producing stuff, it's pretty easy for you to get word out, I would imagine, because you guys know everybody.
Yeah, I think definitely it would be, you know, fun to have a couple basers out. I mean, you can just kind of see, you know, as long as everything stays good, like, you know, you can imagine to see a full line of Summit Parachute Systems products hopefully in the future.
Dude, that's awesome.
Start with pilot rigs because it's, you know, absolutely perfect. You know, pilots need the love, you know.
Yes, for sure.
And so, like, start off with those guys, and then we'll just keep on going.
Nice. Now, with the rigging courses, is it a full start to finish rigging courses you offer? Like, because I'm a non-rigger, so if I wanted to come out and get my ticket, I'd be able to come to you from zero and get going?
Yeah, so rigging courses have been pretty popular too. In Arizona here, we have a lot of military contracts, and they require that the packers be licensed riggers.
Okay.
And I think, like, in general, a lot of the drop zones are, you know, kind of pushing their packers to have rigging licenses now. And so, yeah, the rigging course, it's, you know, it's expedited. It's definitely meant for people who have experience packing and have experience in the sport. But it's definitely like a minimalist course where it's the basic 20 packs, show you how to do some sewing, and then you're kind of on your own to do like at home studying with Parachute Rigger Handbook and, you know, Gauntlet study app for the written test. But
okay.
Yeah, it's pretty intensive, and it definitely gets you everything you need to do to get you on your way. You know, little stuff like I provide a little toolkit and logbook and all that stuff, and so that way when you go out in the world, you're good to go. You know, you can do your packs and do your sewing, and you know, you got your tools and you're ready to go. So
sure,
it's cool, man. Like I got so my courses are, you know, for the most part one-on-one. So it's really fun to like have somebody come in, and, you know, I really get to like, you know, develop a relationship with them, and, you know, because this is going to be, you know, after they go out in the world, like, you know, I hope that we stay connected, and it's, you know, fun to develop a relationship and then show them the, you know, the stuff that they need to do to basically start or to have a good foundation for, you know, for their skydiving career. And that's what I say is good starting foundation for any career, and that's, you know,
cool.
That's just
now let me ask, how long does the initial course take to get through? Like, if I want to come get my rigging ticket and I'm not living in Arizona, how long can I expect to stay in Arizona to get that?
Yeah, so it's as fast as you can do the packs. You got to do 20 packs. So I usually, you know, have a methodology to try to do, you know, a pack every 2 hours, and so, you know, four 10-hour days. That's 20 packs, and then a day or two of sewing. You can probably get it done in the course in a week.
Okay.
And then a few days for the exams.
I was going to say, so there's a knowledge test as well. Now, do you administer those exams, or do they have to go somewhere else?
So I'm not a DPRE, a designated parachute rigging examiner. I don't hold that license or that privilege, but so we have a couple places locally. Sandy Reed, Tony Frost, Mark Bauer, they're all within a couple minutes drive.
Okay, cool. So it's kind of a one-stop shop for people if they want to come to you, escape colder weather, they want to get the rigging ticket, and obviously Arizona's a good spot to come. How far away from the drop zones are you?
Yeah, so that's what we get. We get a lot of snowbirds, and we're 10 minutes from the drop zone, so we're just right there. And so everyone's just kind of coming to hang out and do some jumping, do some rigging, and yeah, it's awesome.
So from one desert to another desert, you're just kind of bouncing around to the sun, huh?
I love it, man. It's good. It's I'm originally from the Northwest, but I like the more dry, arid climates.
Sure. Yeah, I can't blame you. Now, let me ask you guys as we get towards the end of the podcast, for people that are interested in doing that rigging course, for pilots that are out there looking for the parachute systems and all that stuff, how do they find you? How do they follow you on social media specifically to keep up with you guys? And then how do they find out about Summit Parachute Systems?
Yeah, so Facebook and Instagram is a good way to just, see what I'm up to. And my dad's got a Facebook, Brett Martin. Summit Parachute Systems has a Facebook, and the website is a pretty good source for getting in touch. Summit Parachute Systems.
Awesome. Anybody that listens to the podcast has heard that a few times before. And Brett, like I said, I know you and I have had the opportunity to chit chat many times, brawling on Facebook with people.
Yes, we have.
It's always kind of funny, right, when you find out that you've got an ally, so to speak, somebody that thinks along similar lines. And, of course, it's a skydiver. And at first, I did not connect the names. I didn't realize, Martin, hang on, how come I know that name? And then I'm like, oh, shit. All right, cool. Now I love this family.
Happens quite often. People, they've known me for a while, and then they know Jarrett, and years later, they put the two and two together.
Really?
But back in those days when I was in Hawaii, and I don't know how we connected on Facebook, probably through Jarrett, but
sure,
we were arguing the same point at the same time.
Yeah.
And it was pretty surreal.
Yeah. No, it was kind of funny. Every time I would see that you had commented on a post, I would always check to find out what it was, because I knew that 9.5 out of 10 times I was going to agree word for word, and then probably want to step in and take a round or two.
I appreciated the backup on a lot of that stuff.
Oh, it was always kind of fun. It was always kind of fun. Now, and you're on Facebook just under Brett Martin?
Brett Charles Martin.
Brett Charles Martin. All right. So they can find you under Brett Charles Martin and Jarrett Martin, and then Summit Parachute Systems as well. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time. I know we got you in the shop right now. Brett, we pulled you off a machine, so I'm going to let you guys get back to work. But thank you so much for taking the time, and hopefully people come and check out everything that you guys got going on. And I'm looking forward to seeing base rigs coming out.
Nice. Thanks, Dane. Yeah, we'll be in touch.
Guys, take care. Blue skies, man. Take care.
Take it easy. Thank you.
And there you have it. Another episode of Lunatic Fringe Into the Void, brought to you as always by, and say it with me, fuck yeah, NZ Aerosports. Head to nzaerosports.com. By Pussfoot. That's right, head to pussfoot.com, the extreme sports collective, and check out everything they've got to offer. By summitparachutesystems.com. Jarrett Martin and the family cranking out amazing pilot rigs, as well as incredible rigging courses. And now joining the Lunatic team, it's the one and only Tony Suits. You know him, you love him. Head to tonysuit.com. Check out all the amazing standards, as well as the new incredible signature line they've got going on. And as for us, the Lunatic Fringe is now on YouTube. That's right, you're going to have the chance to put faces to the audio by heading to youtube.com and looking up the Lunatic Fringe Podcast. It's easy. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, check out all the amazing videos from the previous guests that we've had, as well as new and upcoming interviews on video. As always, I am the fucking pilot. Head to thefuckingpilot.net or theprincesspilot.com. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next time around.